Hello, everyone. How are you? This is Judy Ann. As I shared really quickly on my timeline, I was having lunch just probably less than an hour ago with a friend of mine after church, and she was actually complaining about making less versus the males who were on her job. So I thought it was going to be, that would be a good topic to talk about. That's not what I initially intended to talk about. However, I just thought like she was so upset. I just thought, let me just jump on here just to have a discussion and then to see from that discussion, what can we do about it as women and what are some of the insights that we can share with other women who are possibly going through that too. Hey, Allison, thanks for joining me. And of course, as always, please go ahead and share. Thank you so much. Hope you're having a good day. So that was basically the mindset behind why I decided to jump on here really quick. As I stated, it was a little bit impromptu, but it was birthed out of the conversation that I had at lunch. And because that's really something that we really need to do something about, because we a lot of the times we think it's just, it could be gender bias, it could be all these different things. And in some instances it is, but it's not always that. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to have a conversation about that and just to hear is your input to see what you think about it. And so let me go ahead and share. As I shared really quickly on my time. Let me go ahead and share on my side too, just do a quick housekeeping. And I am welcoming you guys to also go ahead and do the same. So, and hopefully we'll have a vibrant discussion. All right. So let's kick off. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Judy Ann Chung, and I'm a confidence and a leadership coach, wherein from my coaching, my clients enjoy an increased level of confidence and a high level of visibility that allows them to take their ideas from concept to reality and basically just to get it done and enjoy more satisfying careers. So that's what I do. In corporately, I work in investment banking, and I also have been investment banking for 20 plus years. So I just aged myself. But that's beside the point. At least it tells you that I have experience. So anyway, that's a little bit about me, and that's what I do. As I shared earlier, the reason why I decided to have a conversation about this is because I do believe that as us women, we do need to pick up the pace, do something about it, what we can do about it, so we can at least narrow that gap if we can't get it equal. So, hey, Jerome, I see you join. Thanks for joining me. Please go ahead and share on, your groups, your timelines, etc. Okay, so let's kick off and have that conversation. Now, what do we think are some of the core reasons as to why we as women consistently, have less income, whether it be as an employee or whether it be as an entrepreneur, whatever the reason is? What do we think are some of the reasons why we have less money at the end of the day? Why did we walk away with less money? I'd love to hear, if you guys want to type it in the comments, some of the reasons. What's the rationale? What do you think is happening? And Jerome, by the way, so you feel free to chime in also yourself. Okay, so Allison says we do not negotiate our starting salary. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think both Allison and I, you and I, were at an event, and one of the ladies who spoke, she says one of the reasons is that from the start, where we have the best opportunity to negotiate, we do not, as women, negotiate. And she gave the example where the say we're just throwing some monies out now. So okay, I made you an offer and the job is paying $100,000. So the man would say, "Oh, I was expecting 120," right? The woman would say, "Oh, okay." Now that right there creates a problem. So what is now is that man, even though they could have had the identical qualifications, and in some instances they could have had better qualifications, because as we know, statistics shows that women, I don't know how many years now, because I did not check those stats, but I know it exists, that women has been the more higher educated in a lot of instances. So here it is that we have gone through the measures to educate ourselves. But the one thing that is probably lacking, I don't know if maybe we should make sure we have that in our a class in college, but the one thing that they're not training us to do is to negotiate effectively. Alrighty. So Allison says we don't negotiate. We just spoke about that. And it says we don't ask how to make more money so we focus on the wrong things in business. Yes. And that's true, because we will end up doing a lot of the busy tasks, a lot of the things that does not allow us to get more visibility, and it does not input us the main decision makers. So we're in the coffee room making coffee or something like that, and don't get me wrong, I'm not putting it down, but if I'm working in a corporation, I'm not supposed to be in the room making coffee for everybody. Go get your own coffee. Okay, while the gentleman sits there and he has the privilege of having that informal chat with that decision maker or that influencer, and we're sitting there making coffee. Women, we need to stop that. They can get up and go get their own coffee if they need to. All right. So, as a matter of fact, I even read one particular report where what an office was doing is that instead of just having those tasks where it comes to like the Christmas parties, where it was only the women who were doing those tasks, it was being rotated, that the men also had to share in those tasks. So they will all have at least minimally equal time with the main stakeholders. And guys, as I always said, if you're receiving any kind of feedback from any of my of the device here, please let me know, because sometimes I can't hear it, but you guys can hear it on the other end. Okay, so we spoke about the lack of negotiation from the start point, and then we also now talking about not being able to focus on the things that puts us in front of the decision makers, the influencers, versus the men. All right. So Allison then also said, we don't promote our accomplishments, so it is not in the mind of the decision maker when raises, bonuses, and promotions are given. Absolutely. Because we tend to be a little bit more on the modest side. While the guy will always say, oh, I did this. And in some instances, it's not even done well. But he doesn't care. He did it. Nobody's asking him in that moment to rate the quality of it, but it's something that he did. So he's going to go out there and he's going to share what he has done. Versus us as women, we tend to be a little bit harder on ourselves. So what we do is like, well, I did it, but it probably wasn't done up to at least our standards that we appreciate. So then we turn around and we devalue our work by not sharing it, right? Okay. So Jerome says there is definitely historical gender prejudice that has to be tackled publicly and one industry, at a time. Yeah, I mean, and it's, I'm not even sure how they would go about and do it. I think it has to be a conscious decision in every single CEO head, where they come and said, okay, listen, we recognize this gender bias. We recognize this discrepancy. We recognize the gap. How now can we move forward in minimizing that gap so we can, preach, because a lot of companies, our mission is to be, equality, this, that, and the other. Are you really living it by making hard and tangible decisions that would allow your workforce to come on par? A perfect example, even though slightly different, but at least it was shown a company who decided to, put their money where their mouth is, meaning Amazon, when they decided to raise the, I don't know if it was the minimum wage, or they raised it to, I think, $15, I think, per hour or something like that. So that was at least a company who decided to make that decision. It's a large company too, so it will definitely impact a lot of people. So to Jerome's point, yes, it has to definitely be each company within every industry that would proactively make that decision to say, okay, this is what we do. Another thing that recently happened, I know it's not yet in every single state, but I know it's definitely in New York and New Jersey, where before they could ask you how much money you were previously making. And then say the job is still going with the 100,000 benchmark, since we started with that. Say the job was paying 100,000, but unfortunately you were underpaid at your previous job and you were only making, say, 70,000. at that point, because that's all you're making, they don't feel obligated to make up the difference, even though that's the job offers 100,000. They're kind of probably going to try to meet you in the, at 80,000. So now they have a savings of 20 grand that could have been put out there. But thankfully, in some states, they're now not able to ask you those questions anymore. So that will also be something that could help going forward. But again, it's also contingent on the woman's ability and confidence to be able to go out there and to negotiate what she's worth. Okay. All right. So Jerome, he says women CEOs and CFOs will have to champion the cause as well. Oh, absolutely. It's definitely can't be done by just one other. I think it has to be a unified approach in terms of accepting that this is definitely a problem. But I think women have to be the ones that will probably initiate in terms of at least, listen, we will not continue to just be okay with, making the minimum salary versus, or lesser salary than the male counterpart is making. Alrighty. So hi, Ronald. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to go ahead and share this live. Okay. So just for those who have just joined us, what we're talking about is like the gender gap in terms of women making less pay. So I titled this "Why Women Make Less Money." So we're just going through some of the issues that women experience. Some are caused by ourselves, and some are things that have been here long before us with gender biases in terms of pay grade, and what has either widened the gap or has helped somewhere or not. So, and again, for those who don't know me, my name is Judy Ann Chung, and I'm a confidence and a leadership coach. And I am here discussing the difference between women and men as it comes to salary. All right. So I was also looking at a particular poll, and it was actually on The Economist, and I tried printing it out, but unfortunately I was having technical difficulties. But all right, so what they spoke about was they gave an example of 10 occupations where women collectively lose the most money, right? And they started off with financial managers. So they said a man's earnings, and this is 2017, a man's earnings was 100,500. The woman's earning was 65,200. So that pay rate was 65%. From a professional gap point of view, this was looking like 19 billion. Oh Lord. Okay. So that's feasible, I guess, depending on how many people they counted in place there. So then they said when it comes to physician and surgeons, they said for the amount of women employed at that time, it was 274,500 women, and the men were earning 243,000, while the women were earning 171,800. So again, there you have that great discrepancy. And in this case, it even went up. It was by 71%. Then they went on to accountants and auditors, right? And that was the amount of women employed. In this case, it was 1 million, right? And the men were making 77,000 and the women 60,000. And of course, I could go on. And the differences here well, let me just give another one, since knowing what some of you on this live would probably do in terms of a profession or business. So for lawyers, they were talking about women lawyers, they interviewed for 320,000 female lawyers, and the men's earning was 140,000 versus the women were at 106,000. So again, as you can see, that there are definitely high discrepancies when it comes to the male, salary. So let's also, I just want to take a look at something else, a part of my notes. Okay, so while I was looking at The Economist, right, they said that there are some of the other reasons why women make less money. They said because obviously we were the caregivers. We're the ones, obviously having the child. We're the ones who are going to take off from work. And they said for every child that a woman takes off from work, then there was what was it? What was the number? Let me see if I wrote that down. I didn't write the exact percentage down, but I'll post the link in there. But it was saying for every time that that woman has a child, there was actually another percentage in which her salary went down. And then the primary caregivers were usually prone to make between 44 to 75% less than the male. And then the other reason that was given was that um, women tend to be mere, even though they're higher educated, they tend to be in the lower tier jobs. They were in the more administrative function jobs instead of the jobs that were actually um, paying a higher money. So again, as you can see, as women, we need to be bold enough, we need to be confident enough where we go after the higher paying jobs, whether we feel qualified or not, get qualified. Always used to say, when I'm at the gym, you will always see it has a lot to do with confidence, because you'll see the men that are like huge and they're just walking around as proud as a peacock, right? They have no concerns. But for the women who, are nowhere near, that huge, they would be there pulling their clothing down because they're uncomfortable and insecure and not feeling as confident as that man who's walking there. That same confidence transcends into those negotiations for money. So it comes back down to confidence. It comes down to a level of boldness where we must research, understand our value, and go after those higher tiering jobs. And as also Allison pointed out, we have a tendency not to promote our accomplishments, which is usually key, because if you're the only one who knows about your accomplishment and it's the best kept secret, it's a secret that's basically harming you, not helping you. So again, those are some of the other things. And then the other thing the article stated is that a lot of the times we have the women, because we have to take care of the family, we are usually overqualified in a lot of these lower tier jobs. So again, you can see the disservice that's being done to us. So let me pause for a moment. Did anybody else want to have anything else input that they want to add to that? Or, opinion on one of those things before I move into another direction? Okay. All right, so one of the comments says, overt sexism, many men prefer to work with men, therefore they promote men. Well, you know what, that's true. Because you're seeing where a lot of men, they feel more comfortable being able to, have, I guess, the locker room talk sometimes. They're more comfortable where they feel that maybe a woman could be offended about that language, so they rather to work with another male rather than working with another woman. And of course there are times that we are viewed as being too emotional, etc. But of course none of those things make it right. If we're qualified for the job and we've proven that we can handle it, then I see no reason why we should not do that. But again, that's easier said than done, and of course that's a mindset and a culture which is a lot more challenging to eradicate, a lot more challenging to change those. So yeah. Okay, so Allison says, I think both sides, the under-earning women and the employer, fail to appreciate the choices on the other side. The conversation needs to be open. Oh, absolutely. And that's why I also had said earlier about it being us to be okay with coming forward and saying, okay, this does not work anymore. This is not going to, be okay. I need to be able to make that extra money. Because, sometimes, as they say, if you don't ask, you won't ever know, right? So if you don't ask for the money, if you don't come forward and say that this is something that's just not acceptable for me and I need to make more money, obviously you put it in more, professional terms, etc. But the point is that you're stating that this is my value. This is what I bring to the table. This is what I can offer. And this is what I think I'm worth. So that's part of the negotiation process. And a little bit later on, we're going to go into, even the negotiation process, because it's not always about money. There are usually other things that you can gain other than money. All right. So I am excusing it, just noting it. Oh, yeah. No. Okay. No, Alison. I didn't even interpret that you were excusing it at all. Okay. So Jerome says mentorship is easier for male to male, but is necessary for both genders and corporate elevation. You see, and that's when it can get a little bit dicey, right? Where a lot of men, from they go back in the age of sexual harassment, this, that, and the other. So I mean, some instances they may definitely just be willing to mentor their own gender. But the truth is, there are men out there who are decent men. I can say that because I have male mentors, and I can, I raise my hand that they have never done anything that's inappropriate or make me feel uncomfortable. And so you definitely have it there. As a matter of fact, I always joke about my personal Facebook page, where I talk about my three stooges, and you guys see it on my page. Those of you who are Facebook friends with me, these are three men who they would mentor me, give me advice, give me different things, give opinions on different things. And these are absolutely, obviously, men of the other gender, but they're absolutely decent men. So it is possible to have different genders that can mentor each other, and it remains above board and not be a problem. And what we do is that we benefit from what each other bring to the table, right? So it's not just even the male alone, because even the male who's going to mentor us, in some instances, we as the mentee can even impart something to that male mentor, and vice versa. All right. So yeah. So Allison says many women feel uncomfortable asking for money. We are socialized not to prioritize it or value it unless it comes through a male partner. Absolutely. And that's the whole socialization and mental cycle that really needs to be eradicated. It's something that we really need to come to the forefront and to actually deal with, because if we continue, the gap would definitely get wider if we don't make that effort to minimize that. Okay, so let's move the conversation forward a little bit now into other areas, and then after that I'd want to tap into what can we do about it. So one of the other is that one of the articles that I read prior to this, it says sometimes women fall into further financial critical conditions because of divorce, or if they were widowed. Now that is true, because in a lot of instances you have women who are not managing the household finances. So when things go awry, they have no idea about how the money in the house was spent, how it was managed, where those bank accounts are, what they need to do. And I can attest to that, because when I was getting divorced, if I wasn't the type of person who kept on top of the finances, you better trust and believe me, my ex-husband would have wiped me out. And that's a fact. Okay, so that is something that I personally, had to live with and experienced. But as I said, fortunately for me, on top of that, so you can't hide anything from me and think I'm not going to know about it. I'm going to know about all the finances. I don't care if you pay all the bills. The point is, I have to know about those finances. So women, getting divorced while you're married, whatever, make sure that you have a part to play in the finances. Make sure that you understand, the balancing of the checkbook, the investments, those stocks, whatever it is that you have, the business dealings. Make sure that when you're looking at whether it be a trust, or when you're looking at sitting down with your financial advisor, or even when you're going over the will, make sure that you are embedded in all of those negotiations. Make sure that you are embedded in all of those conversations, because you must know what's going on. So that means if something goes wrong, because nobody goes into a marriage with the expectation of getting divorced. Nobody goes into a marriage with the expectation that they're going to be widowed. Okay, these things that either, breaking down of a marriage over time, or it can happen suddenly, by a death, etc. But the bottom line is, be prepared and be educated. Take the time to learn what's going on in your household finances, so you are not left out there holding the bag. And as I said, I can talk about that from morning to night, because I went through that, and I had to make sure that I knew what was going on. All right. Okay. So Jerome says, when I was in corporate America, there was the opinion that women managers respond emotionally as opposed to handling situations rationally. And to some extent, that is just a basic stereotype. But there's some truth, but it's not as pervasive as I think people want to, say, like, oh, women are emotional. Well, honey, from some of my experience that I've had, especially on social media, really critical discussions, I've got some of the most emotional responses from men. I was like, oh my word, clutch my pearls. I can understand that, so I don't really buy completely into, oh, women are always so emotional that, we can't make certain decisions. So I'm not really buying into that completely. Yes, there are some women who, yes, they can be emotional. That's life. Some of it could be chemical based, but I just saw your comment there. So some of it can be chemical based where we respond a certain way, but I'm just not buying this whole thing that, oh, women are just emotional so they can't handle top positions. If we can handle giving birth and we can handle raising kids, your bad kids, trust me, we can handle the boardroom. So there you go. All righty. So okay. So Allison says, okay, great points. As a divorce attorney, I see far too many women who are unaware of the finances. Absolutely. Then they feel disempowered and embarrassed in addressing it and often shut down and accept a poor settlement. Absolutely, of course. As a result, over objection of counsel. Right. And then Allison said Kavanaugh was emotional and now he's a social court justice. You see? So apparently being emotional and liking beer. So women, I guess you must also like beer. Let me behave myself. But anyway, Allison, you started it. That's a good one. But anyway, but it's a good point, right? So let's stay on topic. So it's saying basically that even if you have I'm trying to recover from the comment. But anyway, so it's basically saying that you can be emotional and you can still go forward. So clearly, again, there could be a bias being, we could even make an argument for a bias, because the question is, if we were as emotional and Kavanaugh was, I hope I'm saying his name right, but anyway, you know who I'm talking about. If we were as, emotional as him, or if it was a woman that was sitting in that seat, would she have been confirmed after having displayed so much emotions that went through all different ranges, whether it was, the simmering or the volcanic one, right? And then, saying that we love beer, would we have been, nominated? But hey, the bottom line is, he was still bold enough to go after what he wanted. So women, the lesson is, emotional or not, go after what you want. All right. And educate yourself. Okay. So, okay. Jerome says money, both genders working in cooperation with each other make life easy. Oh, absolutely. But the problem is that oftentimes, there's just not the cooperation that you need to have. So what you have to do as a woman is to make sure that you take the necessary step to get that cooperation. So you either force the cooperation one way or the other, have those conversations, and make sure that you're not left holding the bag. All right. So let's shift the conversation a little bit. Okay, so what can we do about this as women, right? So I saw this commentary and I actually loved it, right? It says, negotiate when everyone is in love. I like it. I can't give credit to whoever said it, but I thought it was brilliant in the sense that the best time to negotiate is when things are going well, not when things are, heated, people are upset. And so let's take it now into the corporate setting, the entrepreneurial setting, and the personal setting. So in the corporate setting, if you're being offered a job, obviously like what they saw. They are in love with what you can bring to the table and they see the value. Otherwise, they would not have made you an offer. So the fact that they made you that offer, they're now in love with you. So utilize that in love component to negotiate better. Now, what are some of the things corporately that you can negotiate that are not necessarily only money? So I took the time to look at some different things. And one of the things, some of the things were, obviously we spoke about money already, which is a salary. You can negotiate the amount of vacation time that you get. You can also negotiate the medical. In some companies, they may have a 30-day delay in when you will be covered. You can negotiate that I do not want a delay, right? In other instances, you can negotiate a percentage of bonus if you happen to be getting a sign-on bonus. All right, if they say, okay, we have a sign-on bonus of 20%, you can say, okay, well, I was expecting 30%. And that's something you can negotiate. If it involves a relocation, you can negotiate a better relocation package. Or if they did not even offer relocation, you can bring that to the table. Another thing is could also be your 401. Some companies have the standard matching at the 6%. You can, or after a year, you can negotiate. It says, okay, I don't want to wait a year for that to be matched. You can say, I want it to start on my start date. Another thing that you can also negotiate is a tuition assistant. A lot of companies say, oh, you have to wait for about 6 months or so until you're able to, get that tuition assistant. You can say, I don't want any wait time. And then there's telecommuting. Okay, am I able to have a better work-life balance? Can I work from home for a couple of days? You can negotiate stock options. You can negotiate your severance package. You can negotiate even the equipment that you use, right? Whether it be whatever it is. So there's a whole bunch of different things. Then in addition to that, there's always the complete benefit package. So when you're negotiating women for that job offer while they're in love with you, make sure you're looking at the entire package, not just the base pay that they're offering you, right? So of course that includes, as I said before, the pension, the paid leave, even the severance package if something was to go wrong, even professional dues. So there are a whole lot of different things that you have included that us as women can look at the collective picture to put us in a better bargaining position. Okay, so that's the corporate setting. So let's now take it from the corporate setting to the entrepreneurial setting. Now, again, as women, we have to go out there, we have to negotiate contracts on, who is going to be able to pay whatever we want. And usually what happens is that we're so excited that we got this contract. We are like, oh my gosh, we got the contract. We're excited that the gentleman too would be excited, but he says, you know what? I am so happy we had this, made this offer, but based on this, I was expecting that amount. So it's the same kind of concept and the same mindset that we have also. So Ronald says the husband should make sure the wife is taken care of no matter what, period. You know what? I agree with you there that that's the husband's responsibility, but that's a slightly different discussion in the sense that what we're talking about is that the woman being able to negotiate and get what they want. Because Rona, what if the husband dies? Or what if the husband decides, adios, I don't want to be married to you anymore? Where does that leave the woman? Right? Because usually a lot of the times the way they got into the relationship is not the way when they decide they want to get out of it. It's a whole different husband or wife that you're now going to see. So while I understand where you're going with, and it is rather noble and I appreciate it, the point is in the real world, these things happen and the woman will be left out there holding the bag. Again, using myself an example, when I got married, my husband, he was great, when we were married and things were good. But when things started to go south, no, things were not so great. He wasn't great. I wasn't great. The point is, life happens, so we need to make sure that we take care of ourselves. All right. So taking it back to the entrepreneurial set now, it's like, okay, so a lot of you on here are also entrepreneurs. So give me some comments and some inputs. We spoke about the contract, about being able to negotiate that contract and working with different vendors, understanding your worth, being okay with pricing yourself at the market rate, understanding your value and knowing that it's okay for you to set a certain price, and those who do not want to pay the price, if you do not have a scale that you can work with them on, then it's okay. Then perhaps that client is not for you, and it would not have been the good fit, just so you can say you have a client. So there are different things that you can do there in terms of your tiering and where you're able to, your walkaway point, whether it be a vendor or a new contract that you're working on. And that goes from if you were renting a brick and mortar building, whatever it is that you're doing in terms of that involves negotiation, and being paid what you're worth and paying what you need to pay out a fair market value, right? Because we're not talking about getting over on people here, by the way. We're talking about fair market value and what you're worth. Okay, so Mary, I see you just joined us. We're talking about finances, and I'm sure you being a funding lady and an accountant, so I'm sure that's something that you could offer a lot of insight to. All right, guys. So if we don't have any more commentary on that, we can move forward. All right. So we spoke about the reason for us to be able to negotiate in general. We spoke about what happens that at the table in terms of the company, the gender biases. We spoke about when a divorce happens, the prior salary indicators. So those are some of the different things that we spoke about. Then I also shared with you some of the things that, at least corporately, what you can negotiate when it comes to your an offer being made. All right. So Allison says, as an entrepreneur woman must understand that money is not personal. People are not going to give you more because you are worth more. They will give you based on value, communication based on your belief, not the belief of others. And that is an absolutely, on target, perfect statement, in my opinion. Reason being, if you do not communicate your value, if you do not believe that you're worth it, why should anybody else pay you for it or even believe that you're worth it? My mom always used to say, if you don't toot your own horn, who you think is going to toot it for you? And it's not that you're being, to use the word, braggadocious. And it's not that you're not being humble. It's that you shouldn't be too humble. You should understand your worth. You should understand what you bring to the table. And that also involves a level of self-esteem. It involves a level of confidence and research, understanding your market and understand what's out there. And in some instances, especially if you're just starting out, you may not know, because you have to try different things. You have to do a lot of research. Some instances, people are willing to share information. Others, they're not. That's why, in a lot of cases, it's good to get a business coach. Doing, for an entrepreneur who's just starting out, or whatever coach that you need for that particular moment, because there are different kind of coaches that can take you from where you are being stuck to where you need to be. And even if you're not stuck, they can expedite the process. All right. So Jerome says, I find women business owners to be more thorough, prepared, and professional. Touche. Okay. All right. But then let's stay on that. So if you find them to be thorough, prepared, and professional, then that tells you something. So I was at the Women Who Do Business Differently conference. I think it was last week, Friday, right? Not this past Friday, the Friday before. And that's one of the things that we spoke about, wherein we have to come to the table probably more prepared than that man, because of what we face, that uphill battle that we face. So if we do our research and we come to the table even more prepared, that would allow us to be more confident and be more comfortable asking for what we're worth. So that's a great statement, Jerome. And I believe if we were to just take it a little bit further in understanding our value, then, it would definitely help to close that gap. All righty. So the other thing I wanted to move on now, and that's to share with you, like corporately, before I move on, okay, there's another comment here. It says, another great option is to ask for a shorter turnaround for a review. Companies don't know you, show them your value, ask for a 90-day review or a 6-month review, accept less to start with. Hold on, I'm expanding the comment. Accept less to start with, a guarantee of a higher value upon demonstrating your value, win-win. Exactly. And as Addison does table, there are different ways in which you can, instead of complete walk away, you can renegotiate and create, as she says, a win-win. As a matter of fact, win-win is one of my favorite phrases, because I believe a good deal is a deal where it's a win-win for everyone, right? Because again, I'm stressing and not talking about where you get over on the person. That's not good business practice, and it's going to only come back to bite you in the tush anyway, right? We're talking about fair, market value. You're talking about what you're worth. And that will include negotiations. Negotiations can be as bland as can be, or it can be as complicated as can be, because it depends on what's riding on it, what's the kind of business it is, where you are in the business, what is the value added that you have there. There's so many different things that is involved, that is not a one size fit all, but be comfortable. The key is be comfortable to negotiate and not just say, okay, all right. All right. Hey, Andrew, thanks for watching. Hey, Simone, hailing all the way from the UK. Thanks for staying up with me, guys. Go ahead and share this live. Much appreciated. All righty. So we're coming up on the hour, but let's, and yes, thank you so much for the hearts. Love it, love it, love it. Hearts are always a beautiful thing. Sharing is even higher form of love. So go ahead and share this live. Thank you. So anyway, the other thing that we could talk about is, where are some of the sites, and these are for the, the folks, a lot of the folks in the corporate world, where are some of the sites that you going into the interview process, or even, just wanting to figure out what you're worth, even if you're not yet interviewing. Sometimes it's good to keep yourself educated, to know that even internally, have you, stayed your welcome as it relates to a competitive salary, right? Because at that point, usually if you're being in a company, it's usually be about 5 years, but things move so quickly now. I don't even know if it's still 5 years. It could be 2, but usually it's said that if you're in a company for about 5 years or more, then you're now beginning to experience salary stagnation, because you're only going to get, just what do they call that rate again? Inflation rate, right? You're only going to get, is it inflation rate? But anyway, the bottom line is you're only going to get the rate, which is basically, about 3%. All right. Hopefully I got that term right. I can't remember right now, but anyway, so you're going to only get about 3%, which I think is the inflation rate. And usually that's not enough for you to keep up, because your property taxes, if you live in the state of New Jersey, it's going to go up higher than 3%. Your light bill and all the different things are going to be in, right? Even the taking care of yourself. I went to my salon, they increased just a regular washing my hair. Okay, I was not pleased. Okay, so you got all these different things that are increasing. So you getting just a 3% pay increase or a 4% pay increase is really not going to keep rate with inflation and what else is going on around us. So again, we must be comfortable in educating ourselves. Some of the sites that you can go to, of course, I should say most people probably know about Glassdoor. Then there's also salary.com. There is the paycompany.com. And then there's one that says onetonline.org. So I'll drop some of those in there, but those are some of the things those are some of the things, that places that you can go to educate yourself. You can usually type in your job title, and it would usually tell you what is this going. I think in some instances, it will even break it down by states. Oh, by the way, even LinkedIn does that. So if you have a LinkedIn profile and it's not visible to the public, if you have a LinkedIn profile, there are parts within the link, your settings, your profile settings, that you put in your position, and they will break it down for you, and you put in what state, and it will also tell you what in that particular area. Like, say for instance, I live in New Jersey, so they would tell you what is happening in New York, the tri-state area, of what the salary range is for the type of industry and the position that you hold. So those are some of the ways in which you can educate yourself. From an entrepreneurial point of view, I think it comes back down to just asking those questions. So some of the things I know I have done in the past, I have gone out to different people who are willing to share the information. Hey, I'm starting out, at X time. This is what I'm doing now. What do you normally charge? And then you try to get, some people are okay with it. Some people are not necessarily okay with it, but you don't worry about the people who are not okay with sharing the information, right? You just go to the people who are, and you keep knocking on the door until somebody is. Now, for the people who are on my live who are entrepreneurs, please feel free to chime in on in this about giving your input here. So Paul says, thanks for joining. Paul says, men created what we call the workforce for men. The Industrial Revolution never considered women in the workplace. They are seen as teachers, nurses, and secretaries. If you look at the tertiary education back in the day, it was all about educating men. However, more and more women are entering the workplace and will one day receive their just due. Men are slow, but be patient with them. They usually come around. All righty. Well, Paul, I appreciate that, but I'm not too sure that we're going to be too patient much longer. I think women are at a point in this country and globally, quite frankly, where they're at the tipping point. It says, you know what, we've had enough. It's about time that we become on par, or at least minimally be able to close that gap. So I'm hoping that we continue to work together in terms of narrowing that gap. But I do stress, though, so even though this conversation is focused on the women and narrowing that gap and the role we play, the role society plays, the role history plays, I hope that this dialogue will help a woman out there and to know that be comfortable going after what you want. But I also hope that for the men who are on here and the men who would listen in the replay, as well as the women, that the men recognize that we need your help. Because unless your mindset is, and you understand also that, you know what, if you don't help us now, your daughters also are going to experience what we're experiencing. And if you don't have a daughter, it's going to be a niece, okay? It's going to be somebody down the line who's experiencing that. And so we need your help. And we also need you to help us champion this, because since you're the one who are usually in the higher positions, as the statistics said here, that most women, even though we're highly educated, we're on the lower tier jobs. So since you men are in the higher tier jobs, we need your mindset to shift. We need you to partner with us and to help get that shifting in the mindset and the shifting in the culture, industry at a time. Each CEO, CFO, whatever position you're in, we just need you to partner with us and to understand to make that shift. Make it happen by ourselves. So we need you to do that for us. Okay. All right, guys. So if there aren't any other comments, please feel free to say anything else. Hold on. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone. 1 second. Okay, so yes, Allison, yes, the salon. I was not happy. Okay. But okay, so Simone says, yeah, I know people who have been at the same job for 15 years with little pay raise, and then a younger person comes in and gets more wage-wise, females. Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, when I started working, I remember, obviously this is 100 years ago, when I started working, because my mother is a teacher, and I mean, she was a principal at one point, but she spent most of her life as a teacher because she loved being closer to the kids rather than even the administrative offices. And I remember, when I started working at a certain point, I was making a lot more money than my mom. And I was like, how's that possible? You know what I mean? And my mom, by every account, is a brilliant teacher. I know it's my mom, but it's just a fact, okay? You could research her. She's a brilliant teacher. I mean, she had the accolades that were from here to here, just like continuing. But yes, still, by the time that I got onto the workforce and started working, I was being able to make more than my mother. So it shows to tell you that certain kind of also careers, sadly, do not pay as well as some. And you'll tend to find a lot more women in the teaching positions, because I guess it probably ties into even the nurturing point of things. So we tend to take those roles, again, that are paying less money. So yeah, totally agree with you there, Simone. All right, guys. So coming up to the hour, and I think this has been a fruitful discussions. Hopefully you find it there. I definitely appreciated your comments that you have sent through, and I hope you found value in it. And what I also will do is to drop in the comment section the different websites that I had looked at, and just to also add the different things that you can be comfortable negotiating about, whether you are an entrepreneur or whether you are an incorporated employee. Oh, and the one last thing also that I forgot to talk about it. We said three things, right? It was the personal part. Remember, just to re-stress, make sure even personally that you're able to understand the finances within the house. I would hope you don't live in an environment where you have to negotiate with your husband for spending money, because Houston, there's a problem right there. Okay. So hopefully that's not the environment that you have. And as Ronald said, that the woman is okay. I appreciate that. And I hope more men do that. But what I also want to encourage the women is, while your husband is doing that and the going is good and everybody is good, still make sure that you understand the finances, that if God forbid he passes or there's a divorce, you are still not now dropped below that poverty line. So that is my plea to you. So again, that's what I have to say there. So guys, thank you so much for joining me. And just to recap, my name is Judy Ann Chung. I'm a confidence and a leadership coach. I work primarily with women, but I do work with some men too, in working on their confidence, increasing that visibility, and that allows them to go after what they want. It allows them to take the ideas from concept to reality and to have more satisfying career, or whatever it is, that project it is, entrepreneur, that business, what that passion, that purpose, whatever it is that they're going after, they are more confident in doing so because they have increased their self-esteem and their confidence, and they know how. All right. So guys, thank you so much for joining me, and for everybody who participated, thank you so much. Without you, this live would not be as interesting. So you add that additional dynamic conversation. So thank you. And for those of you who shared, double thank you. And for those who would watch the replay, feel free to put your comments, and have a nice rest of the Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.